Thank you all again for coming. I'm Brigadier General Patrice Melanson, the Executive Director of the PMO. Just a quick overview of what I'll be talking about. You know, you're always supposed to tell people what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So these are the three areas that I'll be covering. So the Air Force leadership stated a visionary intent to rebuild Tyndall as an installation of the future. You guys are going to hear this over and over and over. We were not just going to rebuild the base we had. We are intent on building the base we need, a base that's going to be relative for the next 100 years. Hurricane Michael presented us a very unique opportunity to develop and implement innovative city planning concepts. Because there was such widespread devastation, this really is almost an engineer's dream to almost get to start from scratch with building a base. And so we're being very thoughtful about how we're looking to see what cities, municipalities, metroplexes are doing in terms of smart cities. The Air Force knows that there's much more technology available in the commercial arena, and so we asked for industry's help to identify innovative concepts that we could use for the reconstruction. You all will remember after our first industry day, the 772nd Enterprise Sourcing Squadron published a call for white papers in FBO, and the bottom line is you guys brought it, and you brought it in spades. We had 68 different entities that responded, submitting 98 white papers covering 132 separate concepts. Those 132 concepts were broken out by 6 different categories that you see here. While all 6 categories had significant input, the concepts of resiliency and smart basing had the most number of concepts that were submitted. We had quite a few suggestions related to the use of more nimble contract acquisition. I will talk about that a little bit in terms of kind of innovation, and as Colonel Hayden mentioned, he'll be talking about kind of our overall acquisition strategy in the next brief. We had almost as many ideas related to master planning concepts, design standards, and innovation in construction. And last but certainly not least, we had some very good ideas about how to manage such a large and complex undertaking as trying to rebuild an entire base in effectively one fell swoop. So we appreciate all that. So after we broke the papers and topics out by groups, we reached out to subject matter experts, largely within the Air Force, but we also did get some help from the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. We had a group there that helped us look at some of the smart basing and resiliency papers. We asked the reviewers to consider the highest potential value of the concepts presented and then give it a yes, a no, or a maybe, and then provide some comments to support that yes, no, or maybe. So the Air Force reviewers included subject matter experts from the Air Force Civil Engineering Center Operations, Energy, Facilities Engineering, and Environmental Directorates. We also had several folks from the Air Force Research Lab that looked at some of the papers. And then we also had our Organic Tyndall Program Management Office staff take a look at these and give us feedback. As I said, the detailed analysis identified what we felt was the highest potential value concept, and then evaluations were categorized based on potential benefit and associated risk with the idea. So a no or do not implement meant these were ideas where the reviewer assessed that the risk was much higher than we were comfortable with, or it wasn't evident that there would be sufficient benefit to offset those risks. The maybe or potentially implement are concepts that were deemed to be very sound, but would only be implemented if additional analysis proved that the risk to benefit ratio was favorable. And then finally, the yes or implement are concepts that we feel very comfortable are appropriate to be implemented based on the potential benefits, even if there was some level of risk associated with the idea. So just a quick summary of our analysis. We're going to move forward with, or have already begun moving forward with, in some fashion, over 50% of the concepts that you all submitted. About a third of them have merit, but we feel like we need to do a little bit of additional analysis to make sure that, or do some further coordination to make sure that it'll be a viable option. In the arena of smart basing, the highest potential value concepts included things like, use the pointer here, so Internet of Things platform. That is something that we're hearing more and more about, and we know that this is going to be a huge part of the solution. Colonel Hayden and Mr. Henderson both alluded to our installation investment strategy that was published in January. We believe that that Internet of Things is going to be an integral part. There is already effort underway to bring 5G to Tyndall to increase bandwidth and decrease latency. Those are efforts already ongoing that we are coordinating on. One of the big concerns that I've heard over and over again in looking at this Internet of Things is the cybersecurity aspect. And that's something absolutely that we are involving our comm squadrons with. And in fact, we are engaging with OSD to learn what they are doing in that arena and bring that to bear as we move forward. Sensors coupled with artificial intelligence or machine learning. As I mentioned, Secretary Wilson's infrastructure investment strategy, we know that we need to be much more proactive in the maintenance of our infrastructure and using a variety of sensors that are already in use in industry. We know that that is a piece of this puzzle. And so we're really looking at what's out there and, again, figuring out how we can aggregate all of that data and then using artificial intelligence or machine learning to be able to give notification when we've got a problem at the very early stages so that we can proactively address it at a much lower cost and also extend the life of our facilities much further than our current practice of effectively the machine's got to break before we can do anything about it. So we're trying to be much more proactive. So all of you guys know on the Gulf Coast, it's really hot and really humid a lot of the time. So looking at high-efficiency dehumidification systems, we really believe that that's got value, in particular to reduce our overall HVAC life cycle costs. So we'll be looking at that. And while we're less sure about really what a modern transportation network or autonomous vehicles might look like in implementation, it certainly is something that we are looking at and considering how it might fit. I personally am thinking we're going to have maybe some autonomous vehicles or some drones that if you've got a maintenance tech on the flight line, they'll use an iPad to put in an order and a drone's going to come fly them their part in the WD-40 and really is going to help us improve sortie turns and reduce our maintenance downtime. So, you know, a little bit thinking outside the box, but certainly we're going to look at what that might look like in reality for us. In the area of resiliency, the highest potential value concepts included using underwater tidal turbines to generate electrical power. Being right on the coast, this intuitively makes a lot of sense. Certainly, it does bring some questions in terms of whether the waters are deep enough here, how the source of that energy would be connected to the rest of the system, who might own and operate that, but this could be one of many distributed energy resources. We got a lot of ideas about talking about redundancy and interoperability. Deploying smart grid technology can improve electrical resiliency. The use of smart microgrids is not new or uncommon, and when they're coupled with distributed energy resources, it's a very logical choice for us. So we certainly are going to be looking to that. That may be an area that an EUL or third-party financing might come into play, and so certainly we're going to be looking at those options that are out there. Designing innovations for flood and wind hazards to improve resiliency includes the use of GIS spatial analysis and some custom modeling applications and other proven modeling and analytical techniques to model near real-time surge of hurricanes with different intensities, different wind directions, and tide levels to include analyzing changing flood risks due to sea level rise. This analysis is going to help us better understand and manage our risks from these kinds of weather events. that, let's face it, they're going to keep happening. It's not like hurricanes are going to be a thing of the past. They are here, and we need to really do a much better job of managing the risk from those events. The last thing, the use of utility corridors can be coupled with a variety of modular distributed energy resources to improve overall resiliency. As I mentioned earlier, we all know that we need to address cybersecurity concerns, and we're also going to need to consider how these systems might integrate with existing energy management and control systems and our automated meter reading systems. But these are things that we will work with the right subject matter experts and figure out how we can integrate these techniques. In the area of master planning, some of the highest potential value concepts that we received included the use of federally funded research and development centers to help steward appropriate technology adoption. These unconstrained organizations assist the government with research and analysis, development and acquisition, and systems engineering and innovation. So while we haven't looked into this very deeply yet, this certainly is an avenue that we will explore to see what part that might play in the overall solution. One of the ideas we got was a mission-only community support village concept. This is basically typically what the Guard does on their bases, where the only mission and direct mission support, things like aircraft maintenance and fire protection, are owned and operated by the Air Force, with all support functions provided in partnership or directly by the local community. This enables the Air Force to reduce footprint and ultimately operating costs, and while this might not be the right fit for Tyndall writ large, it certainly warrants consideration of some functions where it might be beneficial. Again, this is another potential community partnership opportunity that we have. The use of 4D and 5D planning software for master planning, this really allows us to look at considerations of schedule as well as cost, and allows us to track trends for early intervention and mitigation as we see trends going in a direction that we don't want them to go as we execute. Kind of think of this as a BIM model that also incorporates cost and schedule into considerations. And finally, the use of vertical multi-story buildings that include mixed-use spaces could result in more walkable campuses. You heard Colonel Hayden talk about the community commons area. We are specifically looking at making that a much more walkable campus area. In terms of design and construction, we've already mentioned due consideration to be given to design standards around things like finished floor elevation and wind speeds. Several white papers mention the use of modular construction techniques to reduce overall construction schedule. We would absolutely love to see those kinds of things proposed in responses to proposals when we move into the construction phase of this. We did have a suggestion for cementitious insulated concrete form technology, using that during construction, and that really provides benefits in 3 different areas. It's shown to be environmentally conscious, energy efficient, and it also promotes a healthy working environment. So those are the kinds of things that, again, we really would like to see. And then finally, 3D printing, additive manufacturing. I am looking to go up to Austin to the AFWorks, DIUX folks up there that are doing some of this kind of thing, and I know that there are offerers in industry that provide these 3D printing of concrete. That has shown to reduce cost and minimize schedule, so again, we certainly would welcome proposals for its use in the rebuild. In terms of acquisition, some of the concepts presented were the use of other transactional authorities and public-private, or P4, within the Tyndall acquisition strategy, and certainly we're looking at those as integral pieces to the puzzle. We're also certainly going to look at construction management at risk. We're going to look at design-build and progressive design-build project delivery methods to enable early contractor involvement. That's something that I think is going to be key as we look to try to understand and begin to know things that we aren't familiar with in the Air Force, but that certainly industry has used. So that early contractor involvement, we're really trying to figure out how that's going to work for us. There may be need for base-specific multiple award task order contracts, or MATOCs, allowing firms to participate in cost, schedule, and constructability analysis. And then we're also going to look to explore partnership with Bay County to leverage the Florida Restore Act funds for Tyndall recovery. Again, that's we have not dug very deeply into that, but certainly that's something that warrants our consideration if there is funding available. In the area of project management, we certainly have looked back at, we've talked with some folks that were involved in Hurricane Katrina and the recovery after that. We also have gotten access to information from the Keesler rebuild after Hurricane Katrina, and so we're looking to see what was done there that we can potentially apply here. Certainly, developing pre-approved procedures to address environmental and cultural resources issues are going to be absolutely critical to save us time during execution. We all know that as much as we try to do homework up front, it's inevitable that we're going to find something during construction. And so if we've already worked out response actions and responsibilities with regulatory agencies, we'll be able to very, very quickly address any sort of findings during construction. Another good idea that we've heard about is a regional recovery advisory board. That coordinates Air Force priorities and efforts with those of the local communities and agencies. Certainly, with the very strong partnership that we have with Bay County and the surrounding communities, this is something that we will look to try to figure out how to incorporate so that we can really, if there is areas of synergy, we want to find those out and really use those to our advantage. And finally, we would look to incentivize overall project management contract support by linking incentives to some key performance indicators. So, wildcards. So, I'm going to talk just a little bit about acquisition strategy, specifically as it relates to bringing technology to bear in our efforts. Colonel Hayden is going to be briefing next the overall acquisition approach, but I wanted to touch on some options that we're looking at specifically in areas of innovation. I'm calling these wildcards because they are going to be used in fairly specific instances that provide us avenues to engage entities who don't typically engage with the government, and options for integrating commercial technology that hasn't been used in DoD previously. As part of our pursuit of the installation of the future, we're aggressively exploring applying these non-FAR-based contracts to our overall program. 10 U.S. 2371B is other transactional agreements for prototyping. It allows prototyping of anything that will enhance mission effectiveness of military personnel and supporting platforms, systems, components, or materials. The authority allows for the government to make motivation-based business deals with industry that can go beyond the traditional approach of trading money for capability and schedule. Properly executed OTAs allow for both the government and industry to get things of tangible and intangible value while setting up the ability for rapid, agile productionizing, and I'm going to coin that word right now, of that prototype. Middle Tier Acquisition Authority under Section 804 allows for successful prototypes to move directly to production. It allows for non-competitive awards of OTAs in addition to FAR-based awards. A common approach is to prototype under OTA for prototyping until there's a viable marketplace available. And then you can implement Section 804 and compete the solutions against that now established marketplace. Commercial solution openings is another area where the government can solicit broadly for innovative commercial technologies and work outside of the FAR to execute those procurement agreements. GSA has special congressional authority to execute these CSOs. And so certainly we're going to look, and again, it's not going to be one size fits all. It's going to be very specific applications that we believe it's the right tool. And finally, this is an idea that's been very, very recently brought up. We are going to look to do something of a Base of the Future pitch day. We are working with the folks at AFWorks to try to do that through the SBIR office to be able to tap into funds that Congress has specifically designated for small businesses. we're going to be exploring the potential to do a special topic specifically highlighting base of the future technologies. So, what's next? We are looking, and I will tell you, last minute change, so we're looking to do a future basing concepts sensor technology integration workshop. We had targeted the 29th of May, but because of some scheduling conflicts, it looks like that will be the following week. But we are going to try to look at the universe of facilities and infrastructure sensors that's in the commercial space and really hone in on those that we believe are most applicable to military installations and specifically to Tyndall. Work's already begun on data standards to be able to integrate the data for artificial intelligence and machine learning. But we need to understand what kind of data and IT backbone are going to be needed to support an effort like this. Certainly, again, cybersecurity is a big concern of ours, so we need to figure out what that looks like. We do have folks from Comm Squadron, AFRL, OSD. We've got a number of DoD-wide subject matter experts that will be coming together to really flesh that out in a much more tangible way for us. We do have Industry Day number 3 tentatively set for August of 2019. We'll give you an update on the Tyndall Master Plan and our acquisition strategy as that really starts to gel. We do intend to have some focused breakout sessions for smart basing concepts, facility and utility resiliency concepts, and then community partnership opportunities. I'm excited that we are able to have a short session on enhanced use leases today, and as was mentioned earlier, there are going to be there's the ability to meet kind of one-on-one with some of those folks. There was a sign-up sheet, I believe, in the back, so certainly we'd welcome you all to participate in that. The information generated from the workshop, that sensors workshop and industry number 3 are going to be used for updating the Tyndall design standards to allow for installation of the future concepts and resiliency. We're also going to be engaging with subject matter experts in DoD to address potential compatibility and policy issues that we may have to look at, and then fleshing out how we translate these really great ideas into requirements that we will then put out through our acquisition strategy. We also are going to be developing an initial listing of potential community partnership concepts that can be explored by the Air Force Community Partnership Program led by Taryn Judd in Staff IE. While Mr. Judd could not be here today, Mr. Lopez de Cardenas, sir, are you here? Yes. Okay. So Mr. Lopez de Cardenas is here. You'll be hearing specifically about EUL's one aspect of the larger community partnership program, as I said, later this morning. So I want to thank you all for your time today, and Don, back over to you for our next brief.